Hey, I want to welcome you today to Link Talks podcast, and we're going to be talking with Kevin Daughtry, the owner and CEO of Yellowbox. And Bonnie Reed's going to join us in the conversation today because she works real close with him, and he helps us do a lot of the behind the scenes things that brings even this podcast to you today.
Yeah.
And so, Kevin, welcome. Tell us a little bit about Yellowbox. Just give us a 500-foot view.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks for having me. I was going to be here anyway, so I guess good. So Yellowbox actually started. I was in vocational ministry for about 20 years, and youth pastor, student pastor, college pastor, family pastor, associate pastor, and was on my way to plant a church through the Association of Related Churches, and realized that I was more excited about helping people launch things than launching myself, and also heard the sound of my voice and realized people had to listen to that like 51, 52 weeks a year. And, let's help them out. So I was always freelancing and doing creative along the way, and had been in ministry positions in some big organizations where I was in creative and, roles. And so it was just always a part of me. But to tie those two together, when I realized I can do this, and this can be ministry, this can be what that was like a revelation.
Yeah.
That's good.
I think a lot of people miss the fact that the skill sets that God has given them is their pathway to ministry.
Yeah.
Marketplace ministry is just as valid as pulpit ministry, really. If you're a businessman, if you're, whatever, there's opportunity for you to use that gift and talent for the kingdom. So we love and appreciate Kevin. He does so much behind the scenes. Bonnie, you talk about a little bit about our Link Yellowbox relationship.
Yeah. Link and Yellowbox, I feel like we're just family. We've run several years together in executing the vision of Link. And so what I love about working with you guys is you take the heart and vision and mission that we have as Link, and you've run right alongside us to display that, and you've taken it on as your vision. And so when you design for us, or you're on a project for us, you guys are looking at it from our perspective, and I think that's really beautiful and something that I've appreciated. I don't have to try to get you to understand it; like, you can just run right alongside, and so it's fun. It makes it fun,
Oh, we have fun too. It's a blast.
we have a little too much fun maybe, but I love your team and everyone on your team. Like, you've trained them to bring to the table that same heart.
Yep.
Right. So,
we were talking a little bit about that last night at dinner with one of the pastors that is a part of Link, and talking about, the attitude of your team matters a lot, and if they take on a project and they only view that project from their window or their likes and dislikes, then we miss the mark. Talk a little bit about your overall approach to helping a church.
Well, the way, being in creative, I think everybody has a breath of the creator in them, right? Mm-hmm. Like, we are all in some way creative because we are made in the image of the creator. Mm-hmm. But I think there is, a certain, just like there's people who are, geared a certain way, creatives, I would classify them as a creative type, are people who can create things from seemingly nothing, right? Yeah. And so you basically have these different classes of creative. Like, you have artists. Artists are incredible, well-crafted, well-honed at their tool, just incredible creatives, but they are tooled at, I have a vision, I'm going to make it plain, and I'm going to build it. And there's a difference in an artist and an agency creative. An agency creative could be an artist. We've had team members over the years who made great agency creatives, but they really were an artist on the inside. Mm-hmm. But they knew the difference. On one hand, as an artist, I'm creating for me.
Yeah.
On the other hand, as an agency creative, I'm creating for the client. Yeah. And there's a difference, because it's not, it's not my vision that I need to impose.
Yeah.
I need to decipher, dig in, read between the lines, and discover your vision clearly. And how do I elevate that? How do we as creatives make the client's vision or make, the ministry's vision, whether maybe you're creative and you're at a church and you don't see yourself as agency level, but you're serving the needs of that church or that ministry. You are an agency creative. Like you are working in an organization as an in-house creative. And so as that seat for us as creatives is not about imposing our idea. Obviously there's good design and bad design, and those are universal truths. Yeah. But design is so subjective. I need to read between the line and go, okay, let me understand your heart.
Yeah.
Let me hear your heart. And how do we elevate that in a way that's going to, make it the most impactful for the audience that God's called us to reach? Yeah. And we call that building a bridge between, all right, the leadership's preference and the audience's preference. How do we build a really successful bridge here and help guide that journey? And it's a lot of conversations, a lot of understanding. Yeah. We have a phrase we say to our team. We say, make it personal, don't take it personal. Yeah. Right? Because I can make something personal and be really proud of it. And this is a pain point. We've all had, anybody who's creative, you've learned this, like feedback can hurt sometimes, but that's because you're taking it personal. Yeah. It's about making it personal. So if I know my skill set, I've done the process right, and I've, sent out the discovery surveys and had those conversations to read between the lines, and I missed the mark, well, something got lost in translation. It's not a hit on me personally. We just need to figure out where we took a misstep.
Yeah. Yeah. I think about that even in the aspect of, people that run departments. Yeah. Let's say, for example, a youth pastor. If you make it personal, in other words, if you make your youth ministry all about your preaching, all about your ideas, all about your vision, and you don't run with the house's vision, and you don't come in alignment with the culture of the house, then you're really creating division. And that same thing can be true with a creative. If they're bent on wanting their own way. I think about building a house and working with architects sometimes. The architect, or even helping build Res Life Church here years ago.
Basically your handiwork.
Yeah. So the architect wants to make the magazine, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And not necessarily
exactly
do what the client wants. And so there's that dynamic tension there that I think all of us have to manage, and especially in the creative world. I like that.
Yeah.
Well, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, we're not creating to win awards, right? We're creating to fulfill a vision, and that vision isn't our vision. Yeah. Right. And so I think if you're just creating to make like a magazine or make, I want to get noticed, I want to win an award, for creatives, I would say this: you're not designing. When you're doing something for a client, something for your church, something for your ministry, you're not designing for your portfolio. Yeah. You're designing for their vision.
Really good. Yeah. I think that point that you made about building the bridge from the leader to the audience or to the church member, right? Building that bridge. What I love about how you guys approach that is, let's say I'm the leader, I'm the one you get to deal with. So I'm casting the vision for what we want. Yeah. But then you also are keeping in mind both what I'm saying, but then the people in which I'm trying to reach, my audience, right? And you guys are so good about helping us navigate that. And what I want to encourage the Link family is to realize that as the leader, you may have the vision and the idea, but allow the people on your team, the creatives, to help you navigate speaking to these people. Yeah. Because they have a vantage point that I don't. Yeah. And if I sometimes didn't listen to you guys, we would have missed the mark several times. And I think I'm showing up prepared and ready. And, I've done my due diligence to seek the Lord. And it's not that what I'm bringing is incorrect, but I can't see the whole picture by myself. So that bridge that you're talking about, that creatives or youth pastors or children's pastors or worship pastors can bridge, is so healthy. Yeah. Because then it keeps the people in mind and takes every vantage point to reach them. And that's the whole goal, is to reach people for the kingdom of God. So if we allow as leaders the bridge to be built, it's going to be a much better execution of what's in the heart.
Well, and that vision might change too. Like if if this is, let's say we're doing a capital campaign to raise funds for a new project, or we need to expand the building because we're outgrowing the space. And that's very common in church life, right? And so that's an internal audience, right? Like that, we're not sending a saturation mailer out into the community going, help us raise funds for our church. Like you're casting the vision internally to the people who are already bought into the vision. So that's a different audience. And you have to consider those things. And let's say, hey, we want to do a big marketing campaign. We're doing a big summer series or a big fall series. And we want to we just did a podcast with Pastor Dwayne. He was talking about illustrated sermons. We're going to do a big thing where this is like, the goal is to reach more people who are not yet here. Yeah. Right. Yeah. And so that's a different audience. Yeah. And so we consider things different in that light. Like I'm going to send a saturation mailer and they don't care about, hey, we're a new church in town, or we're, come to church. They obviously, if they care, they'd be there. Right. So what's keeping them up at night? Yeah. Well, how do we dive into that? And so, but that goes into a holistic conversation, because we need to involve leadership. We need to involve ministry. We need to involve pastors in this, because, okay, here's what we say we want to do. What has God put on your heart as my pastor, as my leader, to reach this audience? How do we make that and build a bridge between that and the, 500,000 people or whatever that live within, 10 miles of wherever we're at. Well, I'm saying 500. I live in Houston. We have 8 million people, but like, you know what I'm saying? Like it's a different mindset.
I think about the fact we don't know what we don't know. And sometimes we're blinded by our own inward voice. Okay. Because we're talking about communication here. Anything that you're doing as far as branding, as far as like web design, and all those things Yellowbox can help you with, or just the communication of a ministry that you have. I'm thinking about the fact that, sometimes we're blinded by our own Christian voice. And we were having a discussion last night at dinner. Another topic that we went to was
we went all over the place.
Yeah, we did. We had a good time. But we were talking about how sometimes, like it's a fad, welcome home. Yeah. Everybody comes up, you come out and everybody's got their welcome home sign, right? Well, what is that really communicating? Now it's our Christian voice. Hey, welcome home, welcome to church. Or, we've got something, everybody is welcome in our doors. Yeah. We talk about that. Yeah. But what does that mean? Talk about some of the challenges. I mean, we talked about some real issues last night that were probably blinded for the most part in the church,
It's just, when you're living like in a Christian healthy community and you have people speaking to you, it's easy to lose sight of what's happening outside of your purview, outside of the world beyond, right? And so you start seeing things through a filter. I'm not saying like you need to be, worldly and watch all this stuff and like, but you need to be aware. You need to keep that heart open to God giving you empathy for situations that you might not otherwise understand. Yeah. And start saying, all right, God told me I need to love my neighbor. Is my neighbor just the person that lives next door? Or is my neighbor the area that I live in? And so I think it's easy to get lost in the cliches with our phrases. And so church did this, and I think we like this phrase and we're going to make it, but without really contemplating the real meaning of it. Like everyone's welcome. I know I said this like a couple of years ago at a workshop. I was like, do you really mean it? Yeah. Everyone's welcome. And that could equally apply to, because we work with churches all across the country with we serve all kinds of, theologies. I don't not serve someone just because I disagree with their specific translation of theology, because we have Southern Baptist clients, we have Presbyterian clients, we have non-denominational and everything in between. And so, but I would equally ask either side that question, whether it's more progressive ideology or more conservative ideology, do you mean it? Do you really mean everyone's welcome? And that doesn't mean you have to change what you believe. It means that you show love, like you really prepare yourself, not just to market it. We're going to say, hey, everyone's welcome or welcome home. But how do we make that feel real when they do get there? Yeah. Let's say they got the marketing piece. They saw something on social. Yeah. They watched the video. Man, come, everyone's welcome. And you have someone who's not the typical, ABC scenario.
Prodigal son walks in.
Right, the prodigal son walks in.
Like pig pen.
Exactly.
And having pig stuff all over.
Yeah.
And he shows up at the door. How do we welcome home?
Yeah.
Or.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
do we actually welcome?
Yeah.
Well, it goes to the practical.
Yeah.
Like, the marketing has to touch base with the practical. What is have we actually communicated this message holistically to our serve teams, to our parking lot teams, to our guest greeters, to our ministers? Have we really prepared all these people for kids ministry? Even are we prepared?
Yeah.
That's another thing too. Like, if you're going to do a big marketing campaign, and are you ready? Let's say it works.
Right.
Are you ready for 200 families to show up, and you haven't set up kind of pre-registration? Yeah. You got lines out the door.
Yeah.
You got your parking lot's chaos. Like those things. It's the practicality of marrying our marketing ideas with our actual execution from an operational perspective.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, do you mean what you say is one thing, but also are you prepared for the byproducts of that?
Yeah.
And I think if you're just looking for an agency to do marketing, they'll be glad to come in and take part of your budget and do marketing. But what I love about Yellowbox is they're kingdom oriented.
Yeah.
And the mindset is holistic. It's a holistic approach, not only from the local church aspect, but also because they're working. They also market with businesses and things like that.
Nonprofits.
So you're seeing a little bit more broader perspective maybe than some of us with our head down. But so, we encourage you to take advantage of this ministry. I don't know if you want to add something here.
Well, I was just thinking about the one thought that Kevin and I talk about all the time is not comparing, right? Mm-hmm. So as churches and spiritual leaders, sometimes we're seeing something that somebody else is doing and we think it'll work great for us, but it really isn't our culture. And so then we try to force something in, and it comes from a place of comparison.
Right.
And I love, Kevin, if you'll share just like your perspective on that, of how do we show up and be authentically us and creative?
Yeah. Well, I think it goes back to, we do that. We did a thing several years ago. It was like, is it okay to steal from other churches? And, everybody who's been in church creative is guilty.
Oh, yeah. There's a lot of stealing happening.
There's nothing new under the sun.
Right.
And then we always go there, but I think you have to take into perspective that just because you personally identify with something that someone else does and you really like it and you really appreciate it.
Yeah.
It may not translate exactly to your market, to where you live, to your culture even, right? And that's not a cultural war kind of thing. It's not us versus them, especially in church plants or church scenarios where something is birthed from the ground up. There's a lot of DNA that goes into that from the leadership. And so it's a beautiful, unique thing to determine what fits here and what works here. But one of the things we've seen is, something has notoriety and it's got the big name and the big excitement, the bright lights. Yeah. And you think, we got to do this for us.
Yeah.
You're not VU Church. You're not in Miami. You're not Elevation Church. And those things are great. You're not Craig Rochelle necessarily.
Right.
Unless you're Craig Rochelle.
Right.
And, you're not even like Chris Hodges. We work with, Church of the Highlands in ARC. That style, a lot of people want to say, I want to do that style, but that's not, is that your style?
Yeah. Right. That's a great question.
Yeah.
So how do you come in and help, maybe ministries or organizations or businesses find their blind spot?
So it starts with
process.
Yeah. It starts with the discovery process. So an internal discovery on our part, we need to do our research. We need to understand the demographics of the area that they're called to reach, but also understanding their DNA. Yeah. So we've built over the years some specific kind of questions that help us understand that DNA. And there's conversations around this whole thing too, but then we also do a demographic study of their backyard of who they're called to reach. Obviously that's different from if it's a national ministry versus a local church, right? But that applies because we want to find the things that correlate. This is where your heart is, your passion, your calling, and here's the people in your backyard. So how do we take that calling and make it fit with the things that's keeping these people up at night? How do we tailor that? And they've, most church plants, most churches that are really interested in trying to understand their area are going to already have done some of that work for themselves. But then it goes into the creative of, okay, now let's talk style. Let's talk design. Like what appeals to you? Because there are universal design styles. There's universal creative styles. And a lot of times there's mishap. There's lost things in translation because we're speaking different languages.
Yeah.
I say bold.
That's good.
You say bold. We mean two different things. I say if you want, I think probably one of the biggest cuss words for creatives is make it pop. like, hey.
I'm guilty of that one.
Well, no, but because it is so subjective, right? So like, hey, I need you to make this pop.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about what that means to you.
Yeah, that's good, Kevin.
So it's just asking the right follow-up questions because if you're a leader in a church, you've been called by God, anointed by God, and prepared and trained for those things. You might not necessarily have been trained in a creative process, and that's okay.
Yeah.
That's not your job to be, because a creative couldn't do what you can do.
Yeah.
Right? They couldn't come up there and prepare sermons and do that. They couldn't lead teams the way you lead teams. They couldn't disseminate culture the way you do. But there's those different levels of giftings that God uses, and we have to learn how to tie those together. So otherwise, it's us versus them. It's the creative department versus the leadership.
Right. Yeah. And that happens so often. And I think that's a really key point that I'd love for our Link family to hear, is to hone in with you on the fact that it doesn't have to be a conflict. It doesn't have to be that the questions are butting up against the vision of the leader. That's not the purpose of them. The purpose is to expand and to come alongside and to execute the vision. And so I just want to encourage department heads and senior leaders to realize, because I've had to learn this with you guys, your questions back to me aren't to challenge what's in the heart of the leadership, but it is to help us get further down the road, to really provide a clear visual of that to the people that we're trying to reach. And so the questions and the process, as high-level leaders, they often don't want to take the process. They just want to give the information and move on. And that's not wrong. But if we'll slow down just a little bit and get in the pocket with our creatives, there is so much that can happen. Yeah. And it will take you further faster if there'll just be a unity and a flow and a willingness to let each other run in their lanes.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. Well, Kevin, it's been great to have you today. And man, we appreciate all that you bring to the table. And I just want to encourage the Link family. Hey, if you're looking for someone to help you in video, audio, graphic design, web design, communication aspects, give Kevin and them a shout. Because I believe they'll come alongside of you, and they'll help any way that they can. They not only have a professional heart, they have a servant's heart and a kingdom heart. And that's what we appreciate and value. And so, hey, be creative, but do it wisely.